Now I want to start by revisiting the idea of having constant values. And if we have a look at this code, most of our variables are real variables and are variables that only receive their values once the application runs. For example, here, where we depend on user input, that's not a value we know ahead of time. We only know that once the user entered something. But of course, we also get a couple of constant values. For example, this new reader, it is created once, right at the start, but then never reassigned thereafter. And also all these texts here. Now, of course, we don't store them in variables at the moment, but if we would extract them into variables, then these would be constants as well. Now let's start with that. Here, we can replace var with const to turn this into a constant. But if we do that, we actually get some red squiggly lines here. Now the reason for that is that even though we never assign a new value to reader, the value which we do assign is the result of calling a function. And in Go, that also then can't be used as a constant, because it would need to execute that function first in order to get the value that should then be constant. The problem is that functions are only executed when the program runs, not when the code is compiled. And therefore it's actually not really a constant, because whilst it never changes after running initially, it has to run first in order to get the value. And a constant should be a value that's logged in before the app even starts running. That's why we can't use a constant here, but why we have to stick to a variable. I think it's still an important thing to again highlight this and to show what the idea behind a constant really is in Go. In other languages, this can, for example, be different. In JavaScript, for example, we also have a const keyword, and there we can create constants even after the application started running, because in JavaScript, a constant is a constant if we simply never assign a new value to it. In Go, it simply is different, and it is just something to keep in mind. Now, to still show you some real constants though, I'll extract the key pieces of text which I have here and store those in constants which I want to define here, like the main title, BMI calculator, which I then want to use here, and also the separator, which should be this text here, which I'll extract and store. And then also these prompts here. So here I have the weight prompt, and then I'll have the height prompt. So that will be stored as well. And then I'll refer to these constants down there, weight prompt and height prompt. Do you need to do that? No, not at all. I'm just doing this to again also practice the usage of consts, and it can be useful to store these key values, these key output text snippets in constants, because that would mean that now if we ever want to change something here, we find those key prompt texts at the top of the file, and we don't have to dig through all the code just to change something about this output text. Of course, in a simple application like this one here, that's not a big issue, but it can save you some time. So putting those values into constants is definitely something you could do. Now, if we save that, the code gets reformatted a bit, and if I now again run this application, it of course still works as before. So that still works, but now we're also using constants again. Now that we did add those constants, let's conclude this course section and this exercise here by again splitting that code into multiple files and then also into multiple packages, just to also practice this again. And I'll start with my reader here. I'll put that into a separate file, but into the same package. For this, I'll add a new file here next to the bmi.go file, since I'll still add it to the same package. Only new packages have to go into a subfolder. Files that belong to the same package should go into the same folder. And I'll name it input.go because this file should hold variables that deal with user input. And I'll add the package main instruction again here. And then I'll grab this reader variable, cut it from bmi.go, and add it in input.go. And now here, to make that work, of course, we need to make sure that in the input.go file, we are importing buff.io and OS. Because whenever you use a package in a file, you have to import it into that file. So whilst variables are shared amongst files as long as they are in the same package, imports are file specific. If you use something in a file, you have to import into that file. If you use it in multiple files, you have to import it into every file where you use it. So here we have to add imports to buff.io and OS into this input.go file. And whilst we could type this manually, in Visual Studio Code you can also click onto the problematic name, buff.io in this case, and then you get this light bulb here. And if you click on this light bulb, you get a quick fix. Here in this case, it's suggesting us to add an import to this package. And if I click this, it adds it for me. We can do the same for OS. Therefore, click on it, click on the light bulb, select Add Import, and it adds this here. And in bmi.go, we should now get rid of these unused imports, and therefore here I'll simply remove these two imports. And then I'll press the auto format shortcut to, well, reformat this code. With that, if we save that all, this application should still run just fine if I run go run dot. And looks like it does. Yes, it works, because both bmi.go and input.go are part of the same package, the main package, and therefore the variable defined here in input.go is automatically also made available in the other files that belong to the same package, in this case the bmi.go file. So that's how we can split code across multiple files with those files belonging to the same package. And of course, you don't need to outsource this into a new file. I'm just doing this for demo purposes. Also for demo purposes, we can create a brand new package now. Maybe a package that holds these text snippets. For this, we should add a subfolder because different packages, new packages, have to go into subfolders. And the subfolder name should be the package name, which then in turn should be just one word that describes the package. Since this package will hold some info text, I'll just name it info. And in there add a info.go file. This file does not have to be named info, but it is quite common to repeat the package name in the main file of that package as well. If you have multiple files that belong to the same package, the other files, of course, would have other names. But here I'll name it info.go. And in there we now add the package instruction. And now here we pick up the name of the subfolder, which again is info, to turn this into a brand new package named info. And now we can grab these constants here, cut them from bmi.go, and add them to info.go, so that they are stored in there. Now they are part of the info package, and if we want to use them in bmi.go, which is part of the main package, we have to import that package here. And we do that by adding it to the import block here. Typically, you add a blank line between the built-in packages and your own packages. And here you then repeat your module name, which you do find in go.mod. So that's the name I will use here. Repeat that here. And then after your module name, you add another slash and then the package name from which you want to import, in my case, info. This will now include the info package into this bmi.go file, into this main package. Now here in println, we can use info dot and then access the different things made available by that package. But here you learned that the casing of your names now matters. If something starts with a lowercase character in the info package, It's only available inside of that package, not in other packages that might be importing from it. Of course, all those constants should be made available to other packages, and therefore we should change all those starting characters to uppercase characters, like that, so that we can use them in other packages. With that, if we save this and go back to bmi.go, now I can add a dot after info, and I can refer to my main title now. And actually here it removed that import because I saved this file, which triggers the auto formatting, and it then removes unused imports. So let me quickly re-add that import here. And now with that, we can correctly refer to info dot, and then the main title, the separator, and then here also the wait prompt, like this. And here, last but not least, the height prompt. And now we're using all those constants from that other package in our main package again. And therefore, one last time, let's execute this module. And that's looking good. I'm seeing those messages, and we're still calculating the BMI correctly. And that's now this first practice project finished. We basically just applied what we learned, plus this reader thing, which was new. But now we again saw all those key concepts in action, and therefore they should really be set and clear at this point. If they are not, definitely go through this section or even the last section again. But once they are clear, we're now ready to dive deeper into Go and to explore functions and how we can write our own functions besides this main function in the next course section.